When you think of Michael Jordan, you'd probably think of basketball, of course. But he's so much more than that. He's a global icon, a brand, really a symbol of what it means to be the best. What we're going to unpack here is the story behind the legend. How did this incredible athlete transform himself into a billionaire owner? All right, let's get into the blueprint.
To really get the empire, you have to start with his almost godlike status on the court. And this quote, wow, this wasn't just some sportscaster. This was from Larry Bird, one of his biggest rivals, right after Jordan dropped a ridiculous 63 points on the legendary Boston Celtics in a playoff game. That's the level we're talking about. So good, it felt supernatural.
But you see, that on-court greatness, that's just chapter one. Today, Michael Jordan's net worth is sitting at an estimated $2 billion. Let that sink in. $2 billion. That's one of the most incredible success stories of an athlete turning into a business mogul ever.
So, that's the big question we're tackling, right? How did he pull it off? How do you go from being the most feared player on the floor to one of the most powerful people in the entire sports business world? Well, it was a three-part journey, from performance to platform and finally to power. Everything starts right here. Part 1. Performance. Long before there was a brand, there was just the game. Jordan's absolute obsession with winning, his relentless drive for excellence, that became the bedrock for everything that came later. Let's just do a quick recap of the pure dominance here. Between 91 and 98, Jordan's Chicago Bulls won 6 NBA championships. We're talking 2 separate three-peats. This wasn't just a lucky streak, it was a full-blown dynasty, built on just historic levels of performance, year after year.
Now, let's zoom in on a single moment that really says it all. The 1997 NBA Finals against the Utah Jazz. The pressure was insane, the whole world was watching, and MJ was hunting for his 5th championship ring.
Okay, so picture this. It's the crucial Game 5, and the series is tied up 2-2. The night before, Jordan gets hit with a nasty stomach virus. Some say it was food poisoning. He is completely, totally debilitated. His trainer finds him curled up in the fetal position. The Bulls medical team basically says, no way, there is no way this man can play.
But he did play. And these numbers are just mind-blowing when you remember his condition. He was out there for 44 minutes, dropped 38 points, and then hits the game-winning three-pointer with only 25 seconds on the clock. The Bulls win. Jordan literally collapses into Scottie Pippen's arms as he leaves the court. That one game cemented his legend forever.
It wasn't just about physical toughness. It was psychological warfare. This quote is a perfect example. In Game 1 of that same series, Karl Malone, whose nickname was the Mailman, is at the free throw line with the game on the line. Scottie Pippen just casually walks by and drops this line. And what happens? Malone misses both shots. Jordan gets the ball and hits the game winner. It was this intense mental battlefield, and Jordan was the master. So you've got this unbelievable performance, but how do you turn that into an empire? Well, that brings us to part 2, the platform. On-court dominance is great, but Jordan and his team, especially his agent David Falk, were absolute geniuses at turning that performance into a massive business empire. And this idea of a platform is so key. It's about making a strategic shift. You stop being just an endorser, which is basically being an employee, and you start becoming an owner. You get equity. You build real, long-term businesses that will be there long after you hang up the sneakers. During his absolute peak, especially around that famous Last Dance season, they started making big moves, one after another. First, they launched Jordan Brand as its own thing under Nike. Then, he went into a totally new market with his own cologne. He locked down his dominance with huge partners like Gatorade, and, critically, he started taking ownership stakes, like his deal with Oakley that put him on their board. And the payoff was instant. Right out of the gate, analysts were projecting that the new Jordan Brand would rake in $300 million in revenue by 1998. This was totally unheard of for an active athlete, turning your own name into a full-on business unit.
And get this, who knew an athlete could sell cologne? Well, by the time the '98 finals rolled around, Michael Jordan's fragrance line had sold $155 million worth of product around the world. It was proof that his brand had power way beyond the basketball court.
This chart really shows you what we call the Jordan effect. At his peak, Gatorade, the brand he was famously like Mike with, controlled a staggering 80% of the entire sports drink market. His face wasn't just on the bottle, it was a force that completely dominated the competition.
Okay, so that leads us to the final piece of the puzzle. Part 3, power. Jordan used his performance and his platform to reach the ultimate goal for any business titan. He started to own the system itself. And then in 2010, he made history. Jordan bought a majority stake in the Charlotte Bobcats, which are now the Hornets. This was a game changer. He wasn't just a brand anymore. Now he had a seat at the owner's table, helping make the rules for the very league he once dominated as a player.
And this is where the business genius really shines. Just look at these numbers. He buys the team in 2010 for $275 million. Then, in 2023, he sells his majority stake for a valuation of around $3 billion. That is not just a good investment. That is an absolute masterstroke, a more than 10 times return. This wasn't a passion project. It was an incredibly smart financial play.
And his ownership goals didn't just stop with basketball. He took his game to a whole different world, co-founding the 23XY racing team in NASCAR. This just shows you his ambition to build and have influence across the entire sports landscape.
And this move was historic too. With 23XI Racing, he broke a major barrier, becoming the first black majority owner of a full-time, top-tier NASCAR team. So he's mixing business with a really powerful cultural statement, opening doors and bringing new visibility to the sport.
So you've reached the peak of performance, you've built a global platform, and you've held power as an owner. What's left? Well, the last part of this blueprint is all about building a legacy that lasts. For his 60th birthday in 2023, Jordan made a $10 million donation to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. It was the largest single donation from an individual in the organization's entire 43-year history. It just goes to show you that his philanthropy has been a quiet but very real part of his story for a long time.
And what's really important here is his strategy. Just like in his business deals, his giving is focused on building real infrastructure. He's not just cutting checks, he's funding the actual systems, like the $27 million he gave to build community health clinics, or the $100 million he's committed to social justice groups. It's all about creating systems that can have a lasting impact.
So Jordan's journey really lays out a powerful blueprint. Become the absolute best at what you do, build a platform that you actually own, and then use that ownership to shape the whole system. It's what took him from the court to the boardroom, from a player to a billionaire. And it kind of leaves us with a big question. If his blueprint was all about going from player to owner, what's the legacy blueprint going to look like for the icons of tomorrow?